In Project 2, we're going to take a look at the Consolidate feature, which is just another method that we can use to summarize data from multiple worksheets or from another workbook and place it into a master worksheet. And they describe a little bit more about the Consolidate feature in its dialog box at the top of page 115 if you want to take a look at that. We are going to open a workbook called New Age Dental Quarter 1 Fees, which I've opened, and they ask that you save it as Excel Level 2 Chapter 4 Project 2 with the same ending, and I haven't done that, and I probably won't either, but just FYI, you probably need to do that if you want to keep your original workbook intact. If you'll notice here, we do have 3 sheets, each with the dentist's name, and they all pretty much show what their earnings are, their first quarter earnings for January, February, and March. Every one of them set up the same way. The amounts, the items there on the left, they're all in the same cells. So that makes the Consolidate feature work nicely as well. Just like the 3D cell reference, if you sum a group of cells or a range of cells, having all those pieces of information in the data in all the sheets in the same cells help make that feature a little bit better. So we're going to do that. And honestly, you could do a 3D cell reference here as well to total these amounts. They just want to show us another method, which is the Consolidate feature. So what we're going to do in the fee summary sheet, this is where we're going to gather all the information, and this is where the summary is going to actually hold the data. And if you'll notice here too, they've already named our ranges. If you click on these named ranges, it goes to the actual sheet and selects. Notice it selects A2 through F13. And so that's going to gather for each one of these. We're going to use those to gather the information and pull it into the consolidation sheet or the fee summary sheet. So with that, we're going to make sure that we're in our total sheet or our summary sheet, and we're going to be in cell A5. That's where we want the data to start. So with A5 being the active cell, under the Data tab in the Data Tools group, we're going to go to Consolidate. That brings up the Consolidate dialog box, and we do want to find totals, so we're going to leave that at sum, but keep in mind you could average or find the highest or lowest or any of these different functions you could use. In your reference text box, this is where we're going to type in the names of those ranges. Now honestly, you could browse out, minimize that and go to each one of these separately and select them. Okay, and that would work just fine. You can add that. Or you can type in the name as they've mentioned that we can. So I'll go ahead and type in names for some of them. I'll click Add, and it keeps adding it to the list. Okay, so now we have all of these references. The Popovich, or however you say that, is the sheet name, and then it references those cells within that sheet, which in essence is the same thing as what we've done in these other ones. We've named those, and those represent the same thing. Now also in our selection here, we want the top row that we've selected and also the left column to be included. We want to use those labels. Okay. Now if you wanted to create links so that if anything changes in any of these sheets, you can certainly click on that and it'll link to those other sheets. They don't have us doing that in the exercise, but that is an option. We can click OK, and now notice the column widths aren't wide enough obviously, so we'll go through and I'm going to select all these, double click and widen those so that we can see the data that's in each of the columns. Now keep in mind the summary sheet, it took out the extra blank column there, and if you wanted that to be set up just the same as the other ones, so that if you'll notice they have blank columns between March and total, and if you want it to look just like the other ones, then you can certainly move that range of cells. And so I'm going to select that range of cells. I'm going to lay my mouse on the border and just click and drag, and that moves it over another column. And then if you wanted, you could go back and use the Format Painter to copy the formats, like the titles here are bolded, centered. You could do that on the fee summary as well, just to keep it consistent. I also want to show you that you can do this with a 3D cell reference, because this may be something that you might have to do on the test. So I am going to add another sheet, okay, and we'll call it fee summary 3D reference. Okay. Now, if you use a 3D cell reference, keep in mind that you are linked. You don't have a choice. You would be linking to all these sheets. In the fee summary sheet where we gathered or consolidated information from those 3 sheets, you're not linked in any way to those sheets. You can see that these are just raw numbers. Okay, they're totals calculated for you, but if you make changes to any of these sheets and the numbers that are within them, it will not change the fee summary sheet. Okay, but with the fee summary 3D reference, the difference in the 3D references, you would have to literally take one of these sheets. Let's just take the first one and select the entire sheet, because what you're doing is getting a pattern for that summary. And so I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it, put it in the fee summary, click an A1, and I'm going to paste it. Now, I know it's not K-Povich. You'd have to update that to, we'll see what they had over here. We might be able to copy some of that. Fee summary, fee revenue summary. Put that right in there. And then if you want to add, a picture just like they had, you can insert rows and all that to make it similar to what we saw in the fee summary. But my point here is that we have to copy those over. We need the labels and we need the column headings. The numbers, though, remember, those are from Popovich's earnings, and so we don't want that. We're going to delete these out. All right, now the 3D cell reference formula, you want to be in the summary sheet. You want to start it out with the sum function. So I'm going to click on the Home tab, Auto Sum, and then we're going to go to each one of these sheets. I'm going to click on the first one. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on the last one. That's telling it grab everything in between Popovich and Jovanovic. I don't know how to say that, sorry. And then once you've told it what sheet tabs, then you tell it what cell, which is B3. Now if you recall with our park attendance that we had earlier, we selected a range of cells, but we only want the first one for right now. Okay, so you're telling it to sum all these sheets, and within each of those sheets, cell B3 should be added. I'm going to press enter. Notice you get 3,374. And then if that formula is correct, which we can go back to the fee summary just to make sure those numbers are the same, then we can autofill down and we can autofill across. And let's see. We could either go ahead and autofill across this way. Let's see if those have the same numbers. Yeah, those are all the same. Let's say the other thing we could do is just sum those, put a sum function in and autofill it down, and that would sum each one of the rows, and that works just fine. And then you also have the previous functions that were in from our Popovich. Notice they had the sum function, so when we copied that sheet, those stayed in the same cells. So those updated. Now, if changes are made, though, in any of these sheets, okay, if we go to Popovich, and let's put in 2,000 here. Maybe we made a mistake or there's some adjustments that need to be made. So if we type in 2,000, notice it changes here. The total changes there. The fee summary, and the best way to look at this is probably look at the total, the grand total, or you can look at this, 3699. If we go back to the fee summary where I mentioned before that it's not going to update it because we didn't link it to those cells. If you go back to that, notice those numbers, those two numbers are different. Okay? Because it didn't update. Alright, so just keep that in mind. The fee summary, the 3D cell reference will automatically link those sheets in so that any changes that are made will automatically be updated in its total sheet or the summary sheet. Whereas with the consolidate feature, you have a choice. The way they described it in the book, they didn't want us linking those sheets, but if you'll recall, I told you there was a little checkbox in that dialog box that you could click that would go ahead and link each of those cells from the various sheets to the fee summary.